What is up, all of you Ugnaughts and Jawas out there, and welcome back to day 3. That's right, day 3 of our 3-day podcast special, where we are wrapping up the May the 4th celebrations, and we are wrapping up by reviewing The Bad Batch Season 3. Now, granted, The Bad Batch Season 3 wrapped a couple days before May the 4th. But we figured we'd bookend our 3-day special with the Bad Batch on the 3rd day, the 3rd season. It's a threes episode, but there's only 2 of us. I'm joined by DJ Foster at Rebel Scum Texan. What's up, man?
I'm here. I'm in the flesh, and
we made it. We made it to day 3,
and
man.
We did. I can't believe we made it.
Wild.
Yeah,
we pulled it off.
Rocking my world champion Texas Rangers t-shirt and hat.
Yeah,
tonight.
Whatever. You know who's a champion we can all get behind?
Omega.
The Bad Batch.
A specific person? my first thought was Jesus? Which is good. I mean, it's good. That's my job. I'm a preacher. I'm a pastor. It makes sense.
Fair enough.
No, but yeah, the Bad Batch champions for sure.
Hey, I do want to say this though. If you've been riding with us all 3 days, thank you so much. Day 1 was our Acolyte trailer breakdown, and we were very dialed in on that episode. We got it. Admittedly, day 2 was our Tales of the Empire. We got a little wonky. So if you're still here, appreciate you, brother or sister. But if you're just now seeing this, and you're starting on day 3, that's fine. I won't spoil anything as far as our previous 2 episodes. You can still listen to this, but make sure you go back and check out those other 2. We've had a lot of fun doing this 3-day special. This is the first time Mando Talk's ever done anything like this. And I'm going to be honest, as far as, and DJ, you can probably relate to this, being a dad, being busy with your career, this was pretty tough to pull off. So smash that subscribe button out of appreciation. You losers. Just kidding.
If anything, just kidding. Be like, if anything, this is how you should look at it, all right? The Bad Batch is basically a bunch of dads.
Fair, yes.
And we're just a couple of dads, and Zach Horvath's not here, but he's a dad.
Yeah, we're all dads.
We're all dads. So,
we should change it to
the Dad Batch.
Yeah. That's a podcast.
Dad DeLorean talk.
Hey, it could be a thing. Anyway, we're already off the rails. Hey, day 3, we're off the rails. You can't be surprised, folks. You can't be surprised.
Why would you be?
All right, well, let's do this thing. You're here for a season 3 reviewed of The Bad Batch. We've got 15 episodes where in all of the episodes, I have one nice bullet point to read and discuss. But admittedly, the finale episode, I have every single character's ending to discuss. So we still have a pretty hefty amount of things to cover. So again, thank you so much for riding with us. And without further ado, let's get into it. Episode 1 was titled Confined. And for me, the big thing with episode 1 of The Bad Batch that stuck out was the fact that I was immediately all in with Dr. Hemlock being the main villain of season 3 from the moment he arrived. Thoughts from you, DJ? Do you share that feeling on Dr. Hemlock in this season?
Yes. He's like one of the best Star Wars villains to date, honestly. Like I feel like after watching all of season 3, I can say that because he's just bad the whole time. He's never comic relief. You know, you never feel like you're just looking at this guy and going, okay, I don't buy it. I buy it the whole season. So
yeah, no, I agree.
Great setup.
I agree. Well, episode 1 was dark and eerie, and that definitely also established the vibes that I was really hoping for out of this season. And I guess I need to go ahead and say this too. I was so appreciative of the fact that season 3 had a beginning, middle, and end, and it got to each and every single one. It connected all the dots. It was clear. It was focused. We maybe had an episode where it was like, oh, do this mission and I'll give you this. But it wasn't like every 3 or every 4 episodes where, let's be real, the other 2 seasons did that a few times, which is okay in this animation format. But my gosh, I'm so thankful the route that they took in this season.
I think that we just had some fatigue on that from Mandalorian because
True. Yeah.
Mando season 2, that's all it was, and then to get a double dosage of Bad Batch, really Bad Batch season 1 and 2 were that way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Agreed.
so it's
Agreed.
nice that Lucasfilm heard a very loud, I would say, majority
Yeah.
say, "Hey, we're gonna streamline this bad boy
Mm-hmm.
and let's knock this thing out."
Well, and let's be real too. They had a lot of things to address too, where they didn't really
Yes.
have the time to go elsewhere. So
No, they didn't.
a well paced out, a jam
Yeah.
packed season 3. So I just
Yeah.
definitely wanted to say that before we got moving forward. Episode 2, titled Paths Unknown. This episode features the Batch coming across a group of younger clone regs who escaped an old Hemlock lab before it was evacuated and destroyed by the Empire. I didn't mind this episode, but it was a change of pace compared to episode 1. But it was nice to see where what the Bad Batch had been up to while all this time had passed, with Omega being imprisoned on
Yeah.
Tantus. What do you think of these younger clones?
I like it. Number one reason I like this episode is because they bring back Daniel Logan to voice.
I was curious if that happened.
Yeah, it's definitely Daniel Logan. I think on one or two of those clones, one of those clones had a different voice actor.
Yeah.
And that's just to show the maturation process of the clones, which is fine. I like that. I'm all for that. But it's so cool to see that Star Wars still uses all parts of the buffalo, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, they're
cool.
using their people, and Daniel Logan being just one of the realest, you know, and coming back and doing such a minor thing. Like, he didn't have to come do this, but he did. And it's a baller move. And I think fans like us appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, then episode 3 happened, Shadows of Tantus, in which, by the way, recall, all 3 of these episodes dropped on the same date. Like, they kicked off the season with this.
Thankfully so, because if you'd have just hit episode 1, it'd been like, wow, I'm depressed. Like, and even the second
all 3
one's
of
kind of like
go together perfectly. I'm glad they made that decision.
Yeah, you have to binge those first 3 for sure.
For sure. Well, in this episode 3, Shadows of Tantus, we see Emperor Palpatine. He makes his presence known in this episode, getting a look and check in on Project Necromancer. Ultimately, in my opinion, this episode gives us the best look at both Palpatine and Necromancer this entire season. Are you okay with the remaining lingering secrets regarding the project and how Palpatine ultimately returns in the sequels? I'll answer that first. I've struggled with that question. I think maybe me and you, DJ, have texted about that as far as has Project Necromancer fully been addressed. I think us as fans, though, we know what's happening behind that curtain. We don't really need to see any more. And I honestly kind of like the secret nature of it left. It almost reminds me of back when we all we knew about Boba Fett was the fact that we saw him in the original trilogy, and all of his secrets is what made that character so cool. It's almost like that, where we know enough, like surface level, of what Project Necromancer is, to where it's almost kind of even more villainous that we don't know everything. I think that's where I'm landing on it at the moment, but that could change. Admittedly, that could change tomorrow. Let's be honest. But what do you think of those things?
You know, I like that we get Palpatine in the you know, the what's the word I'm looking for? The premiere episodes. He needed to show up to kind of show, hey, this is about me. You know, that Necromancer is about him. And if you've never seen all of Star Wars, and for some reason season 3 of the Bad Batch is the first thing you've ever, you know, watched, you're going to be like, well, I didn't know that. But, I mean, who if that's what you're doing Star Wars wrong, just for first and foremost. Secondly, you know, I think it's important to note that he's there. He's interested in this project. Likely has been interested in this project for a while. So it's just cool to see that he shows up unannounced and does his thing, and it leads to Mandalorian season 3, and then, well, really all of Mandalorian seasons 1 through 3, because we now know, because of Mandalorian season 3, why Grogu is so important. We always knew Grogu was important,
right?
But I think it really became evident when Necromancer was first thrown out there to us. And then you don't have to say Necromancer in Rise of Skywalker to know that's what's going on.
That's that's the end of it, for sure.
So they're clearly making, it's like we said in one of our previous 2 episodes, I can't remember which one, They are filling the gaps. They are
Hmm.
bridging the canyon. They're
Yeah.
making sure that people are seeing, hey, maybe you didn't like what we did over here. We
Hmm.
recognize that. We're adjusting and fixing. And that's why I'm still a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
Because they're willing to say, all right, we screwed up. Let's fix it. And it's
Right.
it's fantastic.
I agree with that. The Bad Batch is, I've always had this opinion. The Bad Batch was always best when it was addressing kind of those plot holes that other things had left, because they
Mhm.
answered them pretty solidly, in my opinion, and that continued here in this season. Episode 4, titled A Different Approach. Omega and Crosshair have an emotional return to Hunter and Wrecker at the end of this episode. They're able to break out of Tantus. This episode also sets the groundwork for the growing bond between Omega and Crosshair that occurs throughout the season. And really, that was a main plot point. This
Yeah.
entire ride was Omega and Crosshair getting closer. Any additional thoughts you'd like to add to that one?
It just goes back to that dad batch thing I made a joke about
Yeah,
earlier. I
yeah,
mean, they
100%.
they they really pulled the strings of they all kind of represent a different father figure for Omega.
Hmm.
It just took 3 seasons to show that with Crosshair.
Right.
And it's wonderful. It's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful. Like, I think about, just as a side note, kind of a sidebar. So there are several men in my life that I look up to, that I would consider like an uncle or a dad or someone I've
Hmm.
got a great father. It's not that I don't have a good dad. I have a great dad. There's just, I'm very fortunate to know several men I can go to and say, what do you think about this?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's so cool to see that portrayed in this way. And on top of that, it's a young girl who is going to a father figure. And
Yeah.
it's just, and as a
I
girl
was gonna I
dad,
was gonna ask you
it's
that,
so not,
as a girl
yeah.
dad, what's your perspective on that story? Because I'm a
It,
boy
it,
dad, so I'm not there yet. At least,
yeah,
Lord
no,
willing, if we have a daughter one day, who knows?
sure. And I hope the same for me to have a son one day. But, as a girl dad, it's one of those, for me, I look to the future for a few reasons. Like, one, I want to have that relationship with my daughter and try to
Hmm.
build that trust even now. The other side of it is I want her to know what a good man looks like,
Right.
for her
Yeah.
to marry one day, or just in general, just to, just be aware of who's good and who's bad, you
Sure.
know? So, and then there's the Star Wars side of it where I'm like, hey, you know what? You're old enough now. Let me show you this series. It's got a little girl in it.
Yeah. There
They
you
go
go.
on mission.
It'd be a good
It's
one to
part of,
show.
yeah, because right now all we're watching is freaking Tangled, and it's annoying. So, and I'm getting ready to watch some Star Wars with my little girl one day. It'd
There
be
you go.
nice.
Yeah, that'll be cool. That'll be cool one day. Well, let's keep talking about Crosshair. Episode
Mm.
5, The Return. Hunter and Crosshair have their much needed confrontation before an ice monster begins attacking. After the ice monster, Crosshair and Hunter essentially apologize to each other. Question that I had here: was this enough of a confrontation and moment between the two to move on from the deep and heavy past that they have? Again, one of those things that initially I was like, ooh, that was really quick. But on a rewatch and on thinking about it some more, they, like you just kind of alluded to, Omega is their priority right now. There's not enough time for them to have continued beef with each other. They've got this young girl that's growing up, that's coming into her own, that they've got to be the best for. They can't be fighting with each other, bickering with each other nonstop. So they had to just patch it up real quick. And as far as the journey goes from this episode to the end, that's where all of their confrontation continued to get worked out week to week, because they just kept seeing, okay, yeah, you mean business with Omega, you mean business with all these things that we're trying to do. So I was actually okay with the quick apology and the, all right, let's just handle business approach. What did you think?
No, I think it's good. They needed to kind of hash it out, and I could understand, like, being betrayed and feeling like, okay, we need to settle some things if I'm going to trust you. And there's no better way for Crosshair to build on that trust than for them to go through that serious mission of things together quickly. And they do it so well. They do it perfectly. So, I think it was good. I don't think it needed to be anything more than what it was.
Right. Yeah. I agree. All right. Episode 6, titled Infiltration. And we'll go ahead and read episode 6 with episode 7 as well, since they actually serve each other. Episode 6, Captain Rex makes his first appearance in this episode, where we see him protecting senators who are in the process of forming some form of a rebellion, or at least talking about the idea. This episode also features the first look at CX troopers, the ones that were heavily marketed and many believe to be tech. Commander Wolf returns at the end, and then that leads us to episode 7, titled Extraction. Crosshair is almost drowned by a CX trooper until Hauser, of all people, saves him. Hauser was very confrontational with this dude in between these two episodes. Echo arrives to extract the Bad Batch, Rex, and crew, but not before Wolf and his troopers can get to them. Rex and Wolf have an important conversation that will ultimately stick with Wolf to leave the Empire, but we never see it. Wolf lets them go because we know he is now conflicted. Now, those of you that haven't seen Rebels, it's important to know Wolf is one of the clones that's with Rex. So we know at some point he ditches the Empire. This is the last time that we see him in this season. So this is the most that we'll ever see as far of it. But again, just kind of like the Project Necromancer thing, I've seen enough. The idea has been plotted in his head. You're doing the wrong thing, Wolf. You need to fix it. And so I know kind of where the story's going to go there. He's going to somehow sneak away. He's going to link up with Rex. But that was very cool to see that conversation specifically. What do you think of these two episodes that featured Rex, and really the only two episodes that had our boy Captain Rex in it?
Well, the most notable thing about Rex is he's missing that weird shoulder shield thing from his armor. That was kind of a neat, like, hey, I don't need this anymore. Kind of just symbolizes he's a captain, and now he's just like, I'm not a captain. I'm just a clone trying to save other clones.
Yeah,
which is great. Wolf is my biggest thing here. Watching him struggle. Shout out to my brother Gavin because he loves Commander Wolf, and he's such an interesting clone trooper to go from where he began in season 1 of Clone Wars to this point in Bad Batch is so cool. So that's one thing. The other thing here, though, is it does plant those seeds in his mind, like you said. However, I'm not satisfied with this being the end of the story.
Okay.
I have seen people online say stuff like, I wish we could get a Tales of the Clones series.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that for sure.
I'm kind of like 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other on that, because we have Clone Wars. What is Clone Wars? It's Tales of the Clones. But at the same time, on the other hand of things, not every episode of Clone Wars focuses on specific groups of clones.
True.
So what could Tales of the Clones do? It could do two major things. It could tell Wolf's story of how he ends up with Rex, and it could tell a story about Rex during the age of the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
yeah.
And I think it could do both, and it'd be a lot of fun. So I want that. I don't want them to call it Tales of the Clones because it seems dumb, but I don't know, just something along the. I mean, you could say Tales of the Rebellion and then throw that in there. That would be great.
Yeah, that would fit. That would fit for sure.
But I don't know what the other half of Tales of the Rebellion would be.
Oh, so, you could easily find something there for sure. Easily, I think.
With the clones, you mean, or just somebody else?
No, like I'm saying, you want 3 episodes for clones as far as Age of Rebellion or Tales of the Rebellion, and then 3 episodes on just something completely different.
You do 3 episodes with Omega because, well, we're not to that part yet. But,
sure,
we're going to get there.
You've seen it. Spoiler alert, by the way.
Look, if you're listening to this, you hadn't watched it. That's your fault. All right.
Hey, by the way,
do not blame me.
Zach is actually actively watching season 3 of the Bad Batch. I'm proud of him.
Proud of him. Boy.
So maybe he'll hear this and check this out one day.
On a side note, I'm excited for him to get on the Acolyte episodes with you because I know how much he loves all that stuff. So I loved y'all. I loved y'all's discussion. A few episodes back, or a couple of trailers back.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so much fun listening to him talk about it. I always enjoy his perspective.
It's always fun hearing his. Yeah. All right. Episode 8, Bad Territory. Fennec Shan's episode. Seeking intel on what M count is. That's what Fennec Shan is used for. Somehow she has intel on M count, so the Bad Batch are led to her. Teases of Omega potentially being force sensitive in this episode of her training Crosshair to calm down. The question that I put here is, do we like this character angle for Omega? I think that's something that, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't that something that you had mentioned initially early in the Bad Batch, that Omega could be force sensitive?
Well, I remember if we go way back, I wasn't on Mando Talk when season 1 came out. So I joined right after Bad Batch ended. And so when we had Bad Batch discussions, I remember thinking that exact thought. I always thought she has to be force sensitive.
Yeah.
There's no reason that they would want this random clone if she wasn't
Right.
important,
Yeah.
And so Hunter, Crosshair, Wrecker, and Tech all have desirable traits
Hmm.
that would make for a great squad. And they realize that. Like, well, if we can turn them into Imperials, boom, we got ourselves a force to be reckoned with. Add in a force sensitive clone. What do you do with that other than clone Palpatine some years down the road? You have an Inquisitor type, clone out there running around just slashing people up, which on paper is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
But like, it's a little girl, so you're kind of like, well, it's kind of weird to think about that because it's like you don't want a child to end up that way. But at the same time, it's all good. So all that to say, I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but coming back, I like that that's what ended up happening here to a certain degree. If she has the force, fine. If she doesn't, just as fine, because
Yeah.
it didn't really hurt me that she didn't have it.
Sure. I mean, I just read it as the potential is in her.
Mhm.
You still have to be trained, but the
Yeah.
potential is definitely in her. She has that M count to where, I mean, just like Anakin Skywalker, if Qui-Gon Jinn never came across him, he wouldn't have,
He'd just be
he would
he'd be
be
running the
exactly what,
gauntlet on pod races.
sure,
Yeah.
he'd be
Yeah.
exactly what Omega ended up basically becoming here.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, episode 9, The Harbinger. Continuing on.
No, that's Harbinger.
Oh, sorry. Harbinger. My bad.
You're not a
I've been saying
you're not a
Harbinger all this time.
you're not a English teacher, so it's okay.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
But continuing on this idea of M count, and I will say this is something I talked about. I think it was in yesterday's episode, as far as novels and in canon, the effort that goes into that. We'll talk about that in a second. Asajj Ventress arrives in this episode with zero explanation of where she's been, how she survived the canon novel, Dark Disciple, or anything. Which, by the way, if spoiler alert, if you didn't know, in Dark Disciple, apparently Asajj Ventress dies. I haven't read it, and I'm glad I haven't read it. But continuing on here, the question that I put is, how did this episode work for you? And does it bother you that there is no explanation here? Again, another thing that I said on and I thought about. This is where I'm starting to land on these novels. This is going to sound evil. I'm kind of done putting all the effort into them because I feel like it's been alluded to. I probably can't find the direct quote, but I feel like it's even been alluded by Filoni that he really only looks at the movies and shows and video games. At the extreme would be video games as far as directing his storytelling. So at this point, I feel like we're all back to the place again where novels are just EU all over again. So I'm not really invested on the whole Asajj Ventress thing. I think the explanation that we got was that she's got plenty of lives left or something like that. Like she's basically a cat. She's got 9 lives. You can kill her 8 times. She'll still be fine. What did you think though, as far as the lack of explanation?
Okay, so as far as the novel is concerned, I have also not read it, but I am aware that she apparently dies in that novel. Now, I did read somewhere on Twitter in the leading up to this episode that somebody at Lucasfilm, I think it was Filoni, said that Ventress's character arc in this story has little to no effect on her character arc in the Dark Disciple novel.
I remember hearing that, yeah.
And so first thing that tells me is this story, Bad Batch, takes place before the Dark Disciple novel. I don't know because I've not read it, so I have no idea where it takes place in the timeline.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know timeline wise, but I've heard before the Bad Batch came out, I had heard that Dark Disciple was definitely before, but who knows?
I don't know, and that's okay that I don't know because I'm kind of in the Filoni boat here, where
same.
I feel that the thing that matters the most is what's on screen,
100%.
And the only exception to that rule is the Resistance TV series.
Sure.
And that is the only exception to that rule because I couldn't stomach 5 minutes of that show. So for you hardcore Resistance fans out there, sorry, not sorry, but Having said that, I think I'm with Filoni. What matters is what's on screen.
Yeah,
Now,
I agree. I'm to
I
that
also,
point. I'm to that point. Now, if you love
yeah,
reading novels, keep reading them because I'm sure they're great stories.
yeah. I mean, of course, it's a great story because people wouldn't be all about it. I
Right.
mean, these are great characters. Quinlan
Yeah.
Voss is a great character, but
But you just
you
need to
know,
know it's not necessarily 100% given fact that that is in fact what they're going to roll with on screen at this point.
yeah. Well, I mean, even in Clone Wars season 7, they changed the ending of the Ahsoka novel.
Hmm.
You know, they did. It's gone now. It's a different story. Not a different story. It's a different ending to her story as far
Yeah.
as Clone Wars goes. So there are things that have changed there. There's also things that have changed because of Tales of the Jedi. Excuse me, because of how they affect the novel. So there are differences now, and those differences exist. And if you're a novel person and you're not a movie person, you're in the wrong boat.
Yeah.
I
More
mean,
than
I
likely.
hate
Yep.
I
Yep.
hate to say that so as a matter of factly, but there you go.
Yeah, what's on the screen is always going to be the primary story. And let's be real, in my time of life, as far as reading things, pretty tough ask. That's a pretty
Oh
tough
yeah,
ask. So
yeah.
I think I'll just keep riding with what's on the screen. And I think that's why I'm totally okay with the Asajj Ventress thing. But if you're somebody that's read it, again, sound off, tweet us, comment on YouTube, let us know. I would love to have that discussion. All right, episode 10, moving on here. Identity Crisis. This episode was a tough watch for me personally, now that I have my own
Oh
little one.
yes.
As babies and children that display high M count levels are taken by the Empire to aid in Project Necromancer on Mount Tantus. The specific baby that was taken in this episode was none other than Cad Bane. So this was our one little Cad Bane moment. Not really big deal. Cool. They used a pretty good bounty hunter to get this job done. But really the story here was the fact that they used such a small child. Dark, tough to watch, but powerful in my opinion. It was a very impactful story. How did you feel about episode 10?
Dude, this was just like the hardest thing to watch. I think it's just because I'm a parent,
Yeah,
but I, you know what? No, it's not because I'm a parent. It's because I have a moral code.
sure.
Like, it's
That
just,
too. That too.
it's just,
Yes.
it's tough to watch somebody walk into someone's home, and be like, "This is my kid now,"
Yeah.
and it makes perfect sense that it is Cad Bane because he did the same thing in Clone Wars. For Palpatine. It makes total sense he'd be the one to do it. He has no stomach. You know, he has no heart. He is at this point he is now the dirtiest, worst bounty hunter in all Star Wars. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love to hate him. Let's put it that way. But I think that I'm just gonna say it. I think that was a wrong move by Lucasfilm. I don't think they should have shown such a young child being abducted because reality. I don't like reality coming into fantasy. I hate it.
I think you've talked about that with Andor. There was a episode where the guy shared that his brother or somebody maybe
I don't
committed
remember
suicide or
exactly.
something like that.
Yeah, that happened right in the midst of I was dealing with a
Yeah.
family suicide,
Right.
and
Right.
I did not appreciate that at the time. I still don't appreciate it. I watched Star Wars to escape. I could not escape with this one, and there was a couple times I was like, if this is how the rest of the season goes, I'm out. I just can't do it.
Sure.
So if somebody at I'm still convinced that there's someone's job at Lucasfilm to listen to the thousands of Star Wars podcasts. And I hope that when they come across this one, they hear me and they're like, "Hey guys, we made some people mad. Let's not do that again." You know, because
That's
I
fair.
just I think it's a bad move. I don't think it's a good move at all.
Okay.
It bothers me. It really because and then I'm real quick. They fast forward. They're in the lab, you know, and they refer to all of the children as prisoners and specimens, and it dehumanizes
Well, I mean, that's the
life.
whole idea of Imperials, though.
I know that, but I don't need you to double down on how evil the Empire is. I already
Okay.
know.
Okay.
So it just it bothered me.
Okay.
But
I mean, I respect that take. I'm
glad it just
I was
isn't
okay
dwelt
with
on.
it. I was okay with it personally, but I mean, I can't not respect your feelings on that because
It's a very
morally, you're right. It's a tough watch.
I take things very personally. I know this about myself, but again, it's just a story. It's not real. No children were actually harmed.
Sure.
But I still don't like reality coming into fantasy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Totally
Bothers
fair.
me.
Hey, They all got out of it alive and returned. But
They
we're
did.
getting ahead of ourselves because that's
They,
the final
they
episode.
did.
All right, episode 11, point of no return. We'll probably hit this one quick here. Pabu is attacked after a CX trooper tracks the Bad Batch down by tracking Fee's ship. Omega decides to turn herself in to prevent the killing of innocent local citizens. Omega is returned to Tantus. Really, the big takeaway for me is Omega's grown up. She knows this is the best move. I've got to get out of here so innocent people quit getting killed. Anything to add to that there, DJ?
Lots of maturity on her part, and how dare they attack Star Wars Hawaii?
Yeah, for
Maybe
real. It's a
like it.
great
I'm
place.
just trying to have a pineapple marg. Like don't
Yeah,
don't mess with me like that. It's
I agree.
annoying.
I agree. All right, moving on here. Episode 12, Juggernaut. This, in my opinion, was one of those good old-fashioned Bad Batch mission episodes as they begin to actively seek the location of Tantus yet again and how to get there. The idea is to get former Admiral Rampart out of an Imperial labor camp to see if he can get them to Tantus. Nice little Mandalorian connection with the Juggernaut vehicle. This was just a fun ride, fun little mission episode, and it was interesting to get our boy Rampart back. What'd you think on this one?
Well, it's not just a Mandalorian connection; it's also a connection to Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars as a whole. Those vehicles are all over the place.
Fair, yes.
So, but I hear what you're saying and also Rogue One because
this is
it's
Mando
nice
talk,
to see.
though.
It's true. That is true. But you get a lot of that all over the place in some of these stories. So it's really cool that that vehicle still exists. Number one. Yes, perfect old fashioned episode. And this is the episode where you start to see them tying up loose ends because they bring back Rampart. I had forgotten all about Rampart.
Me too,
and so
dude.
they bring him in and I'm like, oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, especially with the beard. That threw me off because I didn't even realize it was him until he literally said, or they said that it was Admiral Rampart. If I'm being honest. So
yeah, it took the voice for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I didn't catch up on it even then. All right.
Yeah.
Episode 13, Into the Breach. This is when the intensity cranks up. Omega gets acclimated to being imprisoned with the other children in the vault as the Bad Batch makes an effort to get to Tantus by attaching onto an Imperial shuttle that is traveling to Tantus from an Imperial space base. Imperial space base. That was fun to say.
I like space base.
The adrenaline that rushed through me at the end of this episode when Hunter attaches their shuttle onto the ship just in time for the jump was unlike any other moment in this season for me. And it literally then hit the credits as soon as he did it. So I was like, oh my gosh, we're really ending there. And I knew from there we were in for a treat with the final 2 episodes. So episode 13 honestly was one of my favorites that season because of the intensity that was present throughout it. What did you think of episode 13?
Yeah, I think if I go back and rewatch any specific episode, it'd be this one because of that ending and
yeah,
just
it was so cool.
The whole like, if we're gonna do this, we have to do it right now. Like we have no other chance. You know, we don't know when our next chance is coming. I love the intensity, and it reminded me a lot of Andor whenever they heist during the weird meteor shower there in the early parts of Andor. So really fun, just that intense feeling. And then it's nice watching Omega try to like put the puzzle pieces together. Like, how am I going to get out of here again? Because you know, it's one of those things, like even when rewatching it this week, it was one of those like, okay, I forgot that Omega escaped once and had to go back. You know,
right. Yeah.
You know, it was nice to kind of get the refresher. So to see her start to figure things out is awesome.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's one of my favorite episodes of the season. Episode 14, the penultimate. We've made it. Flash Strike. The Bad Batch arrive on Tantus by crash landing on the planet's surface and having to make their way through the forest while Echo sneaks his way into the base from the main Imperial shuttle. Omega discovers a way out of the vault through the walls and discovers a Zillo beast imprisoned. Rampart is captured by the Imperials in the forest. Emery comes upon Echo gathering intel in the labs of Mount Tantus and finally commits to helping Omega and the rest of the children. And then, of course, the stage has been set for the finale. Really glad to see the development with Emery this season because she was very hesitant to join the Bad Batch throughout. She was very hesitant to help Omega out, but I'm glad we finally did, in fact, get to that point. Yet again, another great episode. And as soon as I saw the Zillo Beast, I knew, okay, that thing's wreaking havoc next week for sure in the finale.
Yeah, this episode left me wanting more. Like I was kind of hoping like after I watched it, I was like, man, I kind of wish they'd just go ahead and drop the finale because
Yeah.
I really wanted to see how everything played out. But so waiting a week was kind of one of those. I don't want to wait a week, but I'm glad I did because, of course, as you called it, and it's often called and referred to the penultimate. It really, I think that word really defines this specific episode of
It
Bad
really
Batch.
did. Yeah. Well, dude, we've made it to the finale.
We made it. Look at us.
Episode 15, the cavalry has arrived. We're just going to run through all these different characters and real quickly talk about their endings. Number 1, Rampart ultimately can't rid himself of the lust for imperial power, killed by Nalase, who dies herself. I thought it was fitting. I thought it was a good ending for Rampart, a powerful ending for Nalase.
Well, it's a little bit of two things for Nalase, in my opinion. You get, yes, she sacrifices herself, but what does she actually sacrifice herself for? She really only sacrifices herself so her research doesn't fall into the hands of somebody else.
Sure, 100%.
But who is she protecting? She's protecting Omega.
Omega,
so you can't Omega. You can't. I'm glad that we were on the same train of thought there. So there's that. Also, really quick on that. Was she the last surviving Kaminoan?
To my knowledge, yes.
So that means that her death, that is now an extinct species.
Yep.
So it's like they go first, and then the Geonosians next.
Yep. That's deep, man.
Stupid
That's
empire.
tough.
Abducting children and eliminating species.
Yeah, that's wrong. They suck.
They're the worst.
Number 2, Zillo Beast breaks out of Mount Tantus after causing chaos and is left assumingly roaming the planet. I wouldn't mind coming back one day and seeing what that Zillo Beast has been up to. I'm sure that's something that might be on the brainwaves of Dave Filoni out there somewhere.
Yeah, bring the Zillo Beast back for like a live action movie.
Ooh,
give us a real
that would be
freaking
intense.
Godzilla situation, in Star Wars. That'd be a lot of fun.
Man,
I think if Filoni has like a trilogy planned with Thrawn and Ahsoka, which I'm sure him and Favreau and whoever else are working on all that, it'd be really cool to be like, hey, we need a good middle story. A good middle story would be do something with the Zillo Beast. It'd be a lot of fun.
I would say like the Mandalorian, the Republic needs intel on what Project Necromancer was. They heard about it happened on Mount Tantus. They send Din Djarin. He comes across the Zillo Beast. That would be so cool. That would be really cool.
Maybe the Mythosaur can like travel through space, and we do Mythosaur versus Zillo Beast. That would be
intense, but we got to somehow get them on the same planet. All right, number 3, the CX Troopers. These personal experiments of Hemlocks are killed by the Batch and other freed clones in battle. Although Tech has never claimed to be one of the CX Troopers, one of their helmets has the goggles Tech's version of a CX Trooper would have. I think Filoni again decided to leave it potentially ambiguous for the viewer to decide. I'm leaning toward Tech was just fully on dead. But if you want to go that speculative, fun route, feel free. But I don't think there's really much substance there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Tech did die at the end of season 2.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Han Solo-esque thing. You need someone to die in your middle chapter, and that's what Tech did. Of course, the difference here is he doesn't come back.
Yeah.
It made me miss Tech. But I'm okay that these CX Troopers didn't end up being anything except like a. Okay, I'm about to pull a really weird reference out. Okay, for those of you listening who have seen Spy Kids,
I'm following.
Okay, the first movie they had the clones, essentially all the robot spy children. You know what I mean? That's how I view these CX Troopers. They're just kind of like another evil version of the Batch.
Okay.
There's probably a better way to make a parallel, but that's the only one that comes to mind.
That's okay. Hey, you're just being DJ, and that's why we love you.
Thank you.
All right, next group
I feel like I've been indulged.
Nah. Next group of characters. Imprisoned children. Here you go, DJ. You get your moment. Dr. Carr removes them from the planet, and they are all taken back to their families. Boom. Happy ending.
Perfect.
Happy ending.
Like,
all right.
That's your mom now. Just so you're all. This is your mom now. Omega gets her dad's. This is your mom.
Fair. Well, imprisoned clones. The ones who survive, they get to choose freedom. There you go. They get the freedom to choose. They finally do it. After all these years, they've been soldiers. They've been told what to do. It is pretty symbolic. Let's be serious. It's pretty cool that we get to this moment with those clones.
it very much reminds me of it's like the antithesis of what happened to Vietnam soldiers. You know, Vietnam soldiers came home and they weren't really, a lot of them, if any of them, were very well respected.
Yeah.
The difference here is when you get back to the real world, if you will, they're welcomed home and they're appreciated. You know, it didn't take 30 years to like appreciate those veterans. It took like 5 seconds. You're like, man, come here, eat here, have some space sushi on Star Wars Hawaii, and let's go.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah, it was. All right. Number
I love it.
6, Hemlock. He was killed by Crosshair, which leads to an emotional embrace between Omega and Crosshair and Hunter that happens right after it. And it was just really, for some reason, this was poetic to me. The fact that it was in pouring down rain, which is their home planet Camino, that really got me. That
I
really
never
got me.
considered that.
Oh, it
that
was
just hit me in
so
the
good.
chest.
It was so good,
Man.
man.
I gotta go see if I can't get a game of Battlefront going and just go to freaking Camino.
When
Man,
for some reason, I got a little more emotional on the second watch because I had made that connection. Like,
man,
this is so full circle.
sweet, sweet. I
But
love
yeah,
that.
Hemlock got his. It was necessary. He needed to.
I
die
love how
too.
many times they shot him.
He
Like,
he took him too.
you know, like I love movies where Nazis die. And let's be real, the Empire is just a bunch of Nazis. So it's fantastic whenever they just go for it. And I want to point this out, a massive correction that Bad Batch storytelling did this season was they stopped using the freaking stun option on their guns all the time.
Only a few times.
Oh my
yes.
gosh.
Yeah,
they used it only when it was necessary. Then in this, like, I understood you don't want to kill the clones. I understood that in season 1. But then, like, you have TK troopers coming around the corner. You're not shooting them. Come on.
Yeah, that doesn't.
In this one, they're like, no holding back. Boom, boom, done. It's great.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. All right.
Or pew, pew, pew done.
Pew, pew, there you go. Project Necromancer data wiped. Now, I am interested to see who picks it back up, though, who figures it out. I don't know. Can you hear that in the background?
Yeah, is that your boy?
Yeah, he's playing. He's not really upset. He's just playing around with his mom in there. How long
That's good.
Been able to hear him?
Oh, just here and there.
Okay. All right. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you know what? We're talking about the dads of Star Wars. It's okay.
There you go. Well, I feel bad. You know, mom's on duty, but we'll go in there and relieve her here soon.
Good. For the record, you will. I will not.
Yes, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. All right, Tarkin. He arrives on Tantus, demands the facility to be shuttered, and all funds redistributed to Project Stardust. Of course, Stardust is the Death Star, so that was really cool. That was a cool moment.
His moment coming in here was so reminiscent of Rogue One. It's actually, I watched that and I was like, well, I have to watch Rogue One, and I think that I did on May 4th. So like it took me 2 days, and I was just like, I got to watch Rogue One. It was great.
Fair. Definitely fair. All right. Mount Tantus. I believe there are plenty of secrets still there on the planet of Wayland that I know a particular Grand Admiral came across in Legends, and that Grand Admiral would be none other than Thrawn. What did you think of Mount Tantus?
It's fine that it's jacked up and hanging out and doing its own thing or whatever, but I think it's okay that it was blown up and left there. But I want Thrawn to return, and I really want Thrawn to return to the planet of Wayland in live action. In fact, I would be so okay with in Ahsoka season 2. We know where Ezra went as soon as he got back from the way off planet in another galaxy. I don't think Thrawn knew where he was at the end of, or I don't think we saw where Thrawn went at the end of Ahsoka. So if he goes straight to Wayland, that's fantastic. I mean,
at the end of Ahsoka, Thrawn goes to Dathomir.
So, okay, well then Ahsoka season 2, have him on Dathomir, and then from there go to Wayland.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
It's something that I think we need at some point for sure.
I agree.
In my opinion.
I agree.
All right. Echo and Amiri, they traveled to Pantora to help the clones get settled. I'm assuming these two stay active in helping clones transition post-Clone Wars era. Really cool for these two to still remain active in this transitional period for these clones.
Yeah, there'd be another place where Tales of the Clones or Tales of the Rebellion could pick up and tell the rest of that story if they wanted. But yeah, it's nice to see them go off and do something. For sure.
All right, next up, we're moving along here because my child is actively losing it in the background. That's okay. We're still being able to hit all we need to hit. Rex. Rex helps get the children back home. And of course, we know he continues his fight. We get to see that story some more in Rebels. We get more allusions to it in Rebels and through dialogue with Ahsoka. What do you think of Rex's ending?
I miss Rex all the time. I think about Rex a lot.
Me too.
I just
Me
I
too.
want to see I want to see I want a Rex helmet. I've
I got
decided
one.
that if I you do?
Yep.
I've decided that if I ever get a helmet, another one. I have a Boba Fett helmet up there
Yeah.
for those who are watching. But I want to get a Rex helmet because I love Rex so much.
That's fair. I love Rex. He's great.
Yeah.
Hunter, Crosshair, Wrecker, and Batcher live a quiet life on Pabo for several years as Omega grows up. And speaking of Omega, we see her growing up and deciding to leave the Bad Batch and join the rebellion fight. That was a very poetic, cool, open-ended ending. I've said it before. I don't know if I've said it on the airwaves. This could be the end for Omega if Filoni really wants it to. It's very Rebels-esque. If he wants to revisit Omega, though, and tell that rebellion story, just like they did with Sabine and Ahsoka at the end of Rebels, they could definitely continue the story of Omega. I loved the flash forward. Loved it. What did you think of where all of our characters ended up, specifically that Bad Batch crew? And I'll go ahead and ask you to end us with your final thoughts on the Bad Batch season 3 as well, since we've now made it to all the different characters.
Speculation train really fast. I want Omega to somehow become a Jedi after joining the rebellion. And then I would love for her to be an in canon Mara Jade type character to Luke. I think that would be ridiculous, but also a lot of fun. Somebody out there is going, shut your mouth. But no, I think it'd be fun, something different. Obviously, that probably won't happen, but her going to fight in the rebellion is good enough. And I love that the Batch got to just kind of have their post-war, you know what, this is not my fight anymore. I need to just chill. And I think that it's a good nod to actual war veterans to say, hey, you know what? You did your part. You go rest. Let the next generation take care of things. And Omega takes up that mantle well. So I think it's great. I love it. So overall thoughts on season 3. I mean, just phenomenal episodes. It never felt slow. It always felt like it was getting somewhere, and it makes for great storytelling. So, it's always fun to see how a story comes together and ends poetically. And this one certainly did. Left me wanting more, left me asking a lot of questions, but I think they're easily answered questions with just a handful of storytelling here in the very, very near future.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with all those things you said. Season 3 of the Bad Batch, it was the best one of the Bad Batch story. Now, as far as ranking them, if you're wanting that analysis from me, if I say it's third of the 3 Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch, that is not meant to be a criticism or a negative statement. But that's just how it falls. It's still for me Rebels, Clone Wars, then this Bad Batch story. But man, these animated series that Filoni keeps being in charge of, they knock it out of the park all the time. So I've even made the statement to go as far as maybe animation is just the future of all the Star Wars storytelling one day. Maybe they go that direction. I don't think they will. I'm just saying if they had to, for us really diehard Star Wars fans, we would always have something to chew on with these animated stories. But there you go. There is season 3 reviewed, and that is day 3 of our 3-day podcast special. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, first time we've ever done it here at Mando Talk. It was fun. DJ, I'm glad that you were able to join in on all 3 of them. Any final words, final thoughts you want to say to our lovely listeners as we transition to the Acolyte, baby? Coming soon.
Yes, and I'm so much looking forward to hearing you guys, and maybe I'll jump in there once or twice. We'll see. I may be coming there for an ending recap of the season. You know what? I'm going to do that. Put me on that one. All right. But, I think it's just great that we get to do this. It's fun. I'm going to always affectionately refer to these 3 episodes as the May the 4th trilogy. That's what this was to me. It's the May the 4th trilogy.
Incredible.
So that's how That's how we're going to end it for me. If you want to listen to me talk more about not just Star Wars, but primarily just random movies, come check out Cinematic Theology. We got a new episode dropping very soon on the 1961 movie The Guns of Navarone, starring
Ooh,
Gregory Peck. And if
there
you've
you
never
go.
seen it, great World War II movie based on a book. So check it out here when it comes out very, very soon.
All right, there you go. And also, if you want more Star Wars takes from DJ, follow him on Twitter or X at Rebel Scum Texan. Are you still holding that handle?
I am.
All
I
right.
am.
All right.
I've flirted with changing it to like Jar Jar Binks apologist or something, but
I
no, I'm just
like
kidding.
Rebel Scum Texan. I really like it. And at this point, all the Mando Talk listeners know where to find you.
That's true.
So
They
there you
do. So
go.
thank you, Mando Talk listeners, for trying to stay up with my randomness.
There you
It's
go.
awesome.
There you go. All right. Well, follow Mando Talk at Mando Talk on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. And also subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Like I said, we are quickly turning the page to becoming an Acolyte Companion podcast, as that's coming in less than a month at this point. So Acolyte episodes like pre-release episode, prediction episode, speculation episode, and then of course a week-to-week episode breaking down the latest episode of the Acolyte will be coming soon. So stay tuned, smash that sub button wherever you are at, and let's get out of here. Thank you so much for your support, especially if you've listened to all 3 episodes. If you haven't listened to all 3 and you're still listening to this, go back and check them all out. And thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one. And until then, as always, we have spoken.